Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic Ants. I'm going to be talking about all the new updates and goodies that has been released with version 19.2. So the first thing on the docket is Miru has apparently had her name changed. I don't know why this occurred, and I don't know why I talked about it, but it's apparently something that has happened. Let's jump into the real meaningful content though. So there are many new evolutions for the former Godfest exclusives. Basically, long time ago in PAD's distant history, there was such a thing as 5-star Godfest exclusives. These have been demoted down to not really being that present as a general rule of thumb, so older players may have tons of these cards lying around, newer players may be lacking them, but thankfully, if you do have them, they are now able to form tremendously strong weapon assists. And one thing I want to point out right now very quickly is that in the Monster Exchange, you can acquire Quillin, Schnitzel, and Brahma Dragon gems for 3 Rainbow Event medals. And you can do this multiple times. I'll just prove it. I'll take a Brahma Dragon gem because I don't have that many of them by comparison. I can trade, and I'm like, oh, cool. But I have the option to exchange again. I could keep doing this over and over again. So if you farm the Exploration Dungeon, you got Quillin and Schnitzel Dragons in excess, great. You may not have that many Brahma Dragons because they've only been invade style things in arenas, and that's just much more tedious by comparison. Either way, if you like these weapon assists and you have excess Rainbow Event medals, trade, utilize them through the Monster Exchange system. But, jumping back into here, we are going to take a look at all the new weapon assists. So, Green Odin's weapon assist is one of my favorite ones, actually. It gives you 60% blind resist, it gives you a skill boost, it gives you full bind immunity. All of these aspects are meaningful, and I feel like this is going to be one of the better universal solutions because you don't always have super resist nowadays. I kind of found this out a bit more as I was playing through SR3. I didn't necessarily have super resist across the team, so I had to find creative ways to find 20% across various cards, and this weapon assist can be a wonderful way to include a skill boost, which is something you need, and 60% blind resist, and bind immunity, which may or may not be needed. For the active skill tied to the card, it's not terrible either. It fully clears bind and awoken binds, which can be meaningful. Let's say you're entering SR2 or 3. There is a massive bind preemptively. Well, you can run cards who are not bind immune, but become bind immune when transforming. You can utilize the active of it overcharge to clear all the binds. Useful aspect overall. Like Metatron, she has a tremendous way to increase the healing output of a given team. The Enhanced Heart Orb greatly amplifies the healing aspect of the owning card. You get 2 team RCVs and 2 recover binds. The big drawback is it's a 4-turn based cooldown when max skilled, and even not skilled, I think it's going to be quite short overall. So it may be difficult to not have it overcharged because the effect that it grants when overcharged is not that impactful. We have lots of other ways to get Enhanced Heart Orb Awakenings. For myself, I'm just going to keep jumping back between my own box. I find that Dorothy's Shoes is probably just a cleaner solution overall if you're able to acquire Dorothy. Gives you the same Enhanced Heart Orb Awakening, and it also gives you some resist, but it's got a grossly long cooldown, so it's never going to overcharge. That sort of idea. So, going through more, we have Red Sonja. Red Sonja gives you a enhanced fire combo, so bonus damage for your mono fire teams, bind immunity, and 3 poison resist. So Sena, Tanjiro, basically anyone who doesn't have say bind immunity before they transform, this can be another way to utilize them instead of using Leyland gems. Leyland gems are still powerful. I guess I will just keep jumping back between my monster box because it could be helpful since I have both set up. Leyland gems are definitely quite helpful. They give you the skill boosts. They also give you the enhanced orbs, but I honestly feel that the enhanced fire combo will surpass the damage output of the 3 different colors. But again, it comes down to, do you need the skill boost more than 60% poison resist? Either way, a tremendously strong option to own overall. Next is Cali's Brooch, and it gives you 3 bonus seconds of orb movement time. I don't think this is personally going to be that meaningful. The active skill is not helpful either, but maybe if you really want to have movement time, sure. But it costs a Brahma gem, and you could have made anyone else for a Brahma gem. So I think the opportunity cost is just way too high for Light Cali. Light Cali was good once upon a time, and then no. Next is Erd. Erd gives you 2 enhanced combos of fire and water, so teams that need to match both colors can at least benefit from it. It also technically can benefit both mono fire and mono water teams, because at least one of those awakenings will still have merits. It gives you a team health and a team RCV, which is always helpful. The active skill is not that impactful. It's just a generic tricolor board changer. So I feel like this is an okay option, but I honestly feel like the Red Sonia is just a superior option overall, and it also needs different gems, I guess. So again, just look at the evolution materials needed. Verdandi gives you a nice viable alternative to Zila hats. So what do Zila hats look like? Well, Zila hats look like Zila in hat form. Basically, it gives you the bind immunity and 4 wood rows. This is a dream for Nautilus teams, because Nautilus teams have Nautilus being vulnerable to binds. He's always vulnerable to binds, regardless which evolution you have him in. So, by having Verdandi or Zealot's hat, you can cover the bind immunity issue and give the rose, which improves your damage, improves his active skill. The benefit of using Zealot hat is you gain the team HP, and the enhanced combo orb may or may not have value, but it's more bulk. But at the same time, if you're struggling to heal up, Verdandi gives you 2 team RCVs, and that can be potentially a significant amount of healing bonus, especially if you're struggling to heal back up and you don't necessarily have, like, say, Alnia or, like, a great healing solution. It could be a way to add a bit of healing back into your team. It's obviously less offensive, but it's another nice option to have. And remember, if you are... Actually, another thing to mention is that this active gives a damage reduction shield, unlike Erd. Erd doesn't give damage reduction, so this active can be useful when you need to tank stuff. May not necessarily be on your Nautilus. If it overcharges, the damage reduction is meaningful against gills, or if you can't survive that for some reason, under 50%, maybe you can have Nautilus. Or the Hexazeon, under 50%, you definitely need a shield to survive that. So, a nice option there overall. For Gadius' Brooch, this is quite spicy. You have 80% poison resist and 20 jammer, 20 blind. It's a great way to layer in resist. Like, if you use this in conjunction with, say, like, other things that have 20% resist, it can be a great way to add up to 100% protection. Just a wonderful thing overall. It does require a Brahma gem, and the active skill is okay. It's a 4 elemental board changer with 1 turn haste. I wouldn't really want it to overcharge. I would definitely just leverage it for the resists. For Zuo, you have 80% blind resist and an attack wall above 80%. This will be buffed in the future to attack wall above 50%. It's a small damage boost for the owning card and blind resist. So these types of weapon assists naturally have competition against the Samurai 3 cards. And this is a blind resist one, so I'm going to just show you the blind resist Samurai 3. But basically, you have 80% blind resist with either of these cards, and you either get a skill boost with the Samurai 3s or the attack wall above 80 and soon to be 50% in the future. So if you need the skill boost, Samurai 3 is obviously going to be the winning choice. But if you needed more damage and skill boosts were not necessary, you may want to look at Zuo's option or the other weapon assists in this series, because a lot of them are offering significant amounts of resistance as well. So again, do you need skill boosts? Yes or no? Sometimes you may not necessarily need them. Zuo's active when it does overcharge, gives you some attack buff, some board changer, not so great. I would just try to never let it overcharge, to be honest. Tsubaki gives 2 TPAs. So remember Zerog Core? How it was like how it is a 7-star Godfest exclusive? He also gave 2 TPAs. Tsubaki does as well. Kind of sad that you really don't need to have these double TPA weapon assists from all these super top rarity cards when you could just have Tsubaki do the job for you. Obviously, if you have like Zerog Cores in excess or other equivalents with double TPA, you may not necessarily need to waste a Quillen gem, but if you don't, just make it. It's useful to have overall. Sumire gives you 2 Ls and 2 team RCVs. So there are not that many teams that can leverage Ls, but Ryume teams definitely can. Up until this point, Spider Lady was a great solution for Ryume teams because it was 2 Ls and light, so it does provide some stat transfer. The team RCV is probably not going to be needed on Ryume teams, but maybe we'll let you just kind of ignore most RCV debuffs so you don't have an RCV overrider. But at the same time, there's another card further down the list that gives 3 Ls if I'm not mistaken, so Sumire's is not as magical or special in that sense. Satsuki is kind of like Tsubaki in the sense it's double TPA with bind immunity. The value of this card will definitely hinge on, is this something that you actually need to have on a team, and again, how many other double TPA options you have. For Saria, she gives you 3 enhanced light orbs and 2 team HPs and a regular HP. So a pretty nice amount of bulk added for monolight teams that gives bulk and damage. The active skill is probably not something you want to overcharge, but you could argue that it's a tricolor board changer with hearts that makes hearts with haste. So it could be one effective skill boost that does obviously have synergy with delays. So it may be an option if Mono Light does make a resurgence, but Mono Light is kind of struggling a bit at this point in time. But hey, more bulk, more damage, useful to have. Doesn't require a Brahma gem, which I think are just a bit more awkward to acquire. Australis gives you lots of rows. So if we look back, if you remember Zila's weapon gives you bind immunity, team health instead of one extra row. I would take Zila's weapon over this pretty much any day of the week. I don't think one row is gonna make or break. And again, Nautilus teams need to be bind immune to truly shine. Fenrir could have been a good weapon assist if his jammer blessing did not exist, because we don't want jammers to fall down on our board. It's not a favorable thing. No team wants that. But the 40% resist in all three metrics is meaningful, but unfortunately, the jammer inclusion is just painful to deal with overall, I feel. And a low base cooldown, which will overcharge and just be awkward as well. For blue Sherries, this is the card of 3 Ls. So if you just want to have outrageous L damage with your Ryume team, slap this on a given card. It's 1.5 to the power of 3, so that's 2.25 times, so 3.75 times damage, I think, or something along those lines for the own card. That is almost 2 7 combos you've added to a card. This is the best, this is the most damage you can ever add through a weapon assist to any card. Interesting concept overall. Even if you're playing a team that may not necessarily be super L oriented, you can slap this on the card and then you do have a massive amount of personal damage augmentation when you match that L. The active skill is all attributes and a haste. May not necessarily be the best, but again, that haste may or may not have value if you're needing to transform. Balboa, I do like this weapon assist a modest amount. It gives you bind immunity, 2 team RCVs, 2 team health, so some bulk and a significant amount of healing bonus. Always going to be helpful. And the active skill voids the enemy's defense for 1 turn, halves damage for 1 turn. So the voiding defense can be helpful in certain situations where you're facing spawns of outrageously high amounts of defense values, and or like you just need to pierce through them and you have a difficult time. The damage reduction is helpful as well because, like I said, if you're playing like say SR2 and Gills appears, well no, Gills always appears, under 50% he hits you very hard. Having a damage reduction is necessary. So this could be a way for you to hit the needed bulk and healing amounts to survive for the other parts of the dungeon, and the shield can help let you tank that. Reasonably nice overall. I still actually inherit my Balboa from time to time because it's just a low cooldown defense break, and I do need that from time to time. Citri's weapon gives you 2 team health, 1 team RCV, so nice, significant amount of bulk, and a nice amount of healing bonus. If you need bulk on a team, it can be helpful, and the active skill is not that great, unfortunately. It's fire and wood orbs to water, and then movement time. I don't think it's necessarily going to be that big of a game changer, but it's more so for the awakenings, I feel. Ranove unfortunately has quite a low base cooldown. It's not something you necessarily want to charge up, but these are nice awakenings, but I feel like the low base cooldown makes it quite difficult to juggle around whether or not you're going to overcharge. But again, 2 Ls is meaningful still with resists and bind immunity. Again, it is definitely quite helpful if you can prevent it from overcharging. Again, say Ryume teams, slap them on the leader, you protect them from binds before they transform, and you give a bit of resist, and it probably will not overcharge because with those types of transforming teams, you're unlikely to overcharge on Ryume, even if it's a 3-turn base cooldown, because you're probably going to have a tough time getting to 28 skill boosts with that in mind. Cthulhu has a single skill boost and a bunch of auto heals. Auto heals are kind of underwhelming, but maybe there will be a situation where we need to have auto heals and the skill boost. It's a unique combination, and their active skill also gives you 2 haste. So you could argue that this is a 3 effective skill boost card, but unfortunately the awakenings may not necessarily be that magical overall. For Takam, can't pronounce the name, they give you Cloud, 4 red rows. Not a terrible array of awakenings. The active skill gives you 3 turns of haste, but the problem is it needs 20 turns to charge up. So even if you slap this on Horus, it's 22 turns to charge up. Can be a little bit of a problem, but 3 haste does have merits in itself. 3 haste means you can use it in conjunction with delays. If you transform, like say Sena or Tanjiro, you can haste and make them have their active skill ready immediately. Something to think about, because 3 haste is a large amount, but the massive base cooldown could be something difficult to work around. So I feel like it's honestly going to be stuck on someone like Horus, who has a low enough cooldown to really abuse it. For Nemen's necklace, you have an L and 80% jam resist. Always helpful, like getting close to 100% resist is definitely meaningful. And a single L on a team is always helpful because you can unlock the board or remove locked Skyfalls on a whim. So this is definitely a great option to have. A lot of these weapon assists I'm going to be making, especially the ones with high amounts of resist to various metrics, because it just lets me have more options when team building. The active skill also gives you 2 turns of haste, so this is 2 effective skill boosts as well if it overcharges. A nice aspect overall, I feel, because like if you have a card with a nice base active skill, inherit this over top, 2 haste, an L which could improve their damage, and the jam resist. Quite a spicy weapon assist overall. For Guanyu, a bunch of green rows and tape resist. It's just not going to keep up with the other row options or Zila's weapons, so I feel like it's just something that may be kind of forgotten overall. For the red Guanyu, it's a single TPA and a bunch of enhanced fire orbs. Like, it's nice to have enhanced fire orbs. 1 TPA is just really not going to cut it. The active skill is quite underwhelming overall, unless you for some reason need 5 turns of Awoken and Bind Clear, but I feel like it's just not going to match up. Green Zuliang is quite unique. It might be the first weapon assist in North America, or one of the first, to have the Cross Awakening. So that Cross Awakening does grant a significant amount of bonus damage to the owning card, so this can be a creative way to layer in bonus damage. Obviously it stacks well with cards who have multiple of those awakenings, which will happen in the future at some point in time. They also have 40% poison and 40% blind resist, so helpful resists overall, and a potential way to add significant amounts of personal damage for that owning card while also making a mass attack. It gives more damage than an L, but it doesn't give like the unlocking effect, but it gives another benefit at the same time. So a unique way to add the Cross Awakening through a weapon assist is definitely something I'm going to be making for myself because it is unique. It's just hard to replicate overall. The active skill is not that great, but it's okay. The awakenings are pretty spicy. For Light Zuliang, 80% blind, 20 poison, 20 jammer. Just that alone is great. Like, we could stop there and this is fantastic. The active skill is not really that helpful, unfortunately, so we kind of are going to really stop there. There have been many different active skills being upgraded, but the main notable ones I want to highlight are Yogg. If we take a look at Yogg here, sometimes it's hard to see if you don't have the full information. I don't like how Gungo presents their information here, but Yogg, with his upgrade now, can clear all unmatchable orb effects, bind, and awoken bind. He's now a very powerful light-based cleric who also has 6 skill boosts. He has double 7 combo and a VDP. He could have another VDP or God Killer. I'll take the 6 skill boost. So a cleric with 6 skill boosts, a board changer that clears all problems, and personal damage and passive damage. Yogg has just become a fantastically strong light cleric. The only drawback is the cooldown is quite long, so you may have to rely on other cards to get you out of these binds on a much more rapid basis. Going through the other cards, I was never a huge fan of Geria. Like, yes, I guess you can transform faster, and there's a bunch of other weird stuff you could do, but it's not something I'm truly excited about. The weapon assists for Grandis, Geria, and Yuri, they all now enhance all the orbs. So you create a bicolor board of hearts plus their primary attribute, enhance all the orbs, and then you lock their primary attribute as Skyfalls. I'm not a big fan of these weapon assists, so it is an upgrade, but it's just not something I'm truly excited for. Yuri is now a 1-turn based cooldown, but like there's so many better 1-turn based cooldowns that I don't think Yuri's ever going to see much usage at this point in time. Remy's active is buffed to now give you 2 times orb movement time instead of plus 5 seconds. It makes it much easier to abuse the spinner she produces on a 3-turn cooldown, and her weapon assist now is a 4-turn damage or color absorb counter. That's a massive amount of color absorb counter, and you can basically guarantee you have enough time to kill whatever spawn you're facing. The next card that received a significant buff is Sophie, and she is so great, I want to showcase her a little bit more, because Sophie is one of the best candidates for the double damage cap awakening because she now has a new super awakening. I'm just going to change it right now for myself. I'm going to try and fish for the new 7 combo super awakening because with that, nope, we're going to keep fishing. With the 7 combo super awakening and double cap, she will have more than enough to overcome any spawn really, and I really feel like it. There's nothing that's, come on. 7 combo does exist, I swear it does. And don't worry, okay, it does exist somewhere. I did see it. We're getting there. No, Wow, this is how you waste thousands of plus eggs. Plus points. Like, this is just silly. Nope. It does exist, right? Like, it has come out. There is a 7 combo in there. Like, I swear it does exist. Nope. Wow, this is a fun system, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. 1 in 3 chance. I can't do it. Wow. Nope. How many times has this been? Yay. So, yay! Once you get this, this is great. Jeez, what a waste of pluses. But why is this so great? Well, she has 10, 7, 7. 20 times personal damage. That is great against every spawn. But wait, the fun doesn't stop there. You get 3 times more against physical, attacker, dragon, and god, which are a good chunk of spawns. So even if only one of those types lines up, you have 60 times personal damage with a pretty healthy attack stat, and you're just gonna go sky high in terms of damage output. A great option for the double damage cap because of all those killers that work with her, and in addition to that, her active skill has been buffed to give a movement time buff alongside the attack and RCV. So she's arguably the best universal clearer for these kinds of debuffs. And all the Sophies in the various colors receive that type of buff as well. But in addition to that, her leader skill has been buffed. She is Sophie in any of her 3 evolved forms is going to be one of the best options for 7x6 leader swapping because they give you 1.5 times stats for their primary color, which is a modest amount of bulk, and damage reduction when you match certain colors. So you have some bulk, and you have a reasonably high multiplier as well. And then you can swap in someone else who gives a much better leader skill. At the same time, Sophie is probably a card you want to bring on your given team because she is the most universal buffer that does not need to transform. So, amazingly strong card overall. I'm happy with Sophie. I can't wait to use her more in the future. So that's all the Sophies. Leader skill upgrades. None of these guys are truly that magical aside from the Sophies that I did talk about. Geria and all their various disguises, like they are upgraded, but like there's such an awkward hassle I feel to juggle. It's just difficult to really make work. Grandis now has a better leader skill as well, more bulk. I guess it's nicer if you get leader swapped into Grandis. Remu's leader skill has been actually buffed. Instead of 2 times, well, it gives you 2.2 stats to fire attributes. So now the RCV is also buffed. So Remu doesn't necessarily need to pair with someone who gives an RCV multiplier. She brings her own. So she's a much more independent leader. I think Remu is definitely best suited for dungeons like AA4 where the spinner abuse is actually going to be meaningful and the movement time buff as well. So great usage there. I already talked how all the Sophies are significantly stronger. And Sakuya got a buff, but like it's been years. Awoken skill upgrades. We talked about Yogg. Cthulhu is not something that truly is great overall, I feel. No. Geria, nah. Grandis got a buff. He gets 1 more skill boost. Always nice to have. Grandis, when he does transform, gets more VDP damage. Obviously great to have as well because VDP is something important you're going to be matching. Yuri has been improved, I guess, a little bit. She has 2 skill boosts now, but even so, like, it's not going to be enough to truly change her overall, I feel. Wait, does she have 777 combo with more? Let me double check. I guess she is a quad 7 combo card. So, quad 7 combo with a 2-turn base cooldown. I guess it's not as bad for Yuri, but it could still be difficult to find a great place to truly utilize her on, I feel. Not much there. Super Awakening changes. I guess you could be a 4 skill boost card, but then you lose the quad 7 combo and 1 cooldown. I guess Yuri's not as bad, but like compared to like other things like Crab Girl, like I feel like I would prefer to use her overall. I mentioned the 7 combo already. Sub-attribute additions, cool. Leader skill change names, that's not important. Not important. Okay, so now we're done all the buffs for the evolutions. Now we get to arguably one of the more interesting aspects of this update. So, for version 19.2, we also now have access to a fancier monster search filtering system. So, at this point in time, I have been relying on PadDB, which is a mobile app, and Ilmina.com to find various cards. Like, I want like a card that has certain awakening, certain active skill, certain typing, etc. I can find those aspects within those two mediums with relative ease. And the reason why they were invented is because Pad does a terrible job of finding stuff within your own given monster box. But with version 19.2, a good chunk of that is going to change. It's not perfect yet. I still prefer how Ilmina has a nice click filtering sorting system. It's just easier to navigate instead of typing stuff in. But this is still pretty great overall because with the new feature here, we can go into the other sections. So I'm just going to hop into that part here. So I am going to go into others, and then I scroll and find the monster search. And when you come in here, you're going to be given an interesting thing overall. There's a bunch of buttons you can potentially click and interact with. So you can obviously search for a card's name, but what you can do is actually look up the type of active skill or leader skill you want to have. So for instance, one of the more useful things that I like looking up are delay. What are my delay options? So I put enter in, and then I can start adding more filters into this given thing. So let's say I want to have the bottom button is filter. I can now click what type of things I want to have. So let's say I want it to be a weapon assist. So at least I have other awakenings. Now let's say I want to have a skill boost and a delay. I'm just going to narrow the parameters down significantly. And then I press the filter button to close it. If you press the X button, it clears your filter. Not so good, so we're just going to put back the filter. So now it will show me all the possible cards in Pad who have a delay that have these awakenings. Quite a great system to have. And then you can even press like this top arrow button at the top here, the very top by the search bar where the X is, and it can show that you own this. So if I press owned, it will show me all the cards that are available that I own. If I uncheck the owned button, it shows me all the cards that could possibly have this. And I am not sure why some of these are highlighted and not, because I know I don't own all of these things. Like I don't have this weapon. Can I interact with it? Oh wow, I can interact with it. So I technically interact with Zenogre for some reason. But like, you get the idea. You can actually interact with things on a much more interesting basis. So I can click around and find stuff. So I could find, say, Diablos. If I click Diablos, I can look up stuff. You can find things more easily. And again, with the filter, you can clear stuff and you can just change it up. Like, you can do a lot of exploration here. The only drawback is you have to know the exact name of the type of active skill you want to have. So one thing I want to mention is that because a lot of this has been missing from in-game, a lot of lingo has been kind of invented by players, so to speak, to like convey information more easily. Like for instance, a lot of people refer to damage absorb counter as Fujin style active skills, but if I type in Fujin, I'm only going to get Fujin, of course. But instead, you have to try and use the lingo that's in the Pad game itself. So if you want to counter anything like damage absorb, color absorb, damage void, you want to type in the keyword void. And then it'll show me all the different things. So let's say I want to avoid damage. I can do DMG. They actually allow this, because there's sometimes a character limit in certain things. So I have done that, and now I want to filter. I want to make it so it's just weapon assists. And now it's only going to show me all the void damage absorb. Oh, geez. It's not the best system. Like, it's hard to find exactly one. Like, you want damage absorb, color absorb. It's silly. Like I said, there's some problems with this overall. Like void damage, what? Void damage absorb or attribute. Void damage attribute. Like I'm just trying to figure out void. So if I want to avoid attribute absorption, I can type that and it will show me all the different possibilities. And again, you can filter by various awakenings. So let's say I need to have something with a skill boost. Again, it seems to be pretty common. This is the wrong thing. Like it's not a perfect thing overall because like it seems attribute, it will think Akine is a viable option for this, but it's not. And then Boarhead is one for sure. That works, but Akine or the Snake Princess does not work because it's making a board changer as well. So it's not a perfect system. You're still gonna have to like find these keywords and a lot of overlap. Like that's why like Ilmina or PadDB is better because it gives you drop down or like clickable menus for what you want to have for that given option. But again, just find the keywords and at least it does give something. Like you can search up things here. It's not terrible overall. Like I could find weapon assist with skill boost with this, and let's say I want to have blind resist as well. this is helpful. I can find all the weapon assists with skill boosts and a single blind. It's better for the awakenings overall, I feel. The active skills, leader skills themselves is not so great. And you also can filter in typings, the attributes, sub-attributes, etc., etc. Like, you have lots of different possible filtering mechanics, but it's just something nice to have. In addition to that, in the monster box itself, you can also search by skill. So again, I'm going to type in Void and DMG. And it's going to show me all the different things you could void damage absorption. So it shows the inherits as well. So let's see if I can... Jeez. It's still not the smartest thing overall. Like, it would show Polone works, even though Polone hasn't transformed, just because Polone has inherited. So, like, again, it's not the best filter yet, like void damage. So yeah, like, void damage could also mean stopping... like shielding as well. Like, it's not perfect, because again, I would prefer it if you had like drop down menus to say like, I want damage absorbed counter, but it's something. And you can obviously filter through all your various folders. So like for this, in my inherits folder, I can see that like the umbrella works, I can see that Urika's weapon works, etc., etc. So like, this is definitely it's a bigger improvement compared to before. Is it perfect? No, unfortunately, because there's a lot of things that it doesn't quite filter out. So I still probably am going to use Ilmina and Pad DB for a lot of my searching aspects, but hey, you are able to at least do more in Pad itself, which is definitely meaningful at the same time. So it just kind of explaining how you can do so. You can look at the 120 stats of various cards if you wanted to, which is, I guess, kind of cool. And like I said, you can search for stuff. It's not a perfect solution overall, because it does include things that counter, give you 100% damage shield, even if it says void damage. You can view the cards who they're assisting on. So for instance, I can see who this weapon that you can't see is assisting. So for instance, you can click any assist you have, and you can see who it's assisting. It's assisting my Yucks. Why is that? I don't know, but it's assisting them. I can see my Boar Helmet. It's assisting Polone. You get the idea. Interesting stuff, or Polone, whatever you call them. It's that sort of idea. And that is the general extent, I believe, of all the updates here overall. So hopefully this video provides you some insight as to what you can expect. Make all those sweet, sweet weapon assists. Get all those beautiful resists or those other benefits you could have, along with being able to find things more easily in your monster box. With that being said, let me know what you think about this update in the comments below. Who are you most excited for, or which feature brings a smile to your face? Either way, hopefully you all have a fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.